My name's Brandon and this is Nickelodeon Video Game History, a show where I take a look back on all of the video games based on Nickelodeon shows and retrospectively review them. 2 weeks in a row we have a video game debut on the show here. It's a far cry from the repeated Ren and Stimpy and Rugrats spam. Rocket Power was another show from the late 90s Klasky Csupo hits factory, and was also one of their last few shows to debut. After Rocket Power's premiere, we'd get the criminally underrated As Told by Ginger, the Rugrats spin-off All Grown Up, and the failed Rugrats spin-off Preschool Days. While it certainly wasn't at a Rugrats or even Wild Thornberrys level, Rocket Power was still a successful show. Much of this success is probably owed to the premise of the show and the time period it debuted in. Rocket Power was all about extreme sports, and it just so happened to be that extreme sports had exploded in popularity. For context, Rocket Power debuted the same year that Tony Hawk landed the 900 at the X Games, which, for a 90s kid, that was a fucking cultural moment. The extreme sports fad was everywhere, including video games spurred on by the Hawkman himself. Inevitably, clones of the Tony Hawk games started popping up, and they must have been a cash cow because damn near every sport received its own version of the Tony Hawk formula. My favourite of these was Wakeboarding Unleashed. Such a niche thing to make a game for, but as somebody who grew up around wakeboarding, it was so cool. Personally, I think Rocket Power gets shit on a bit too much, but if modern day critics are to be believed in regards to the quality of the show, the premise is probably entirely to thank for its longevity. It got 4 seasons, resulting in 71 episodes, lasting from 1999 to 2004, and more importantly, it had 5 video games. That's a buttload for a show that wasn't an unstoppable success. Again, I'm assuming this is to do with the show's premise and wanting to cash in on the insane extreme sports craze. The first of the bunch was Gettin Air, released exclusively for the Game Boy Color in late March of 2001. The developers in charge of bringing Rocket Power to the smallest of screens was Teartex. We've sort of encountered them previously as they developed the handheld version of Totally Angelica. However, I didn't spend too much time with that version as it was incredibly similar to its PS1 counterpart. Outside of those basics, you can't dig up any other info on Gettin Air. I can't even find a single credible review for it. With that said, I suppose it's time to slap on some knee pads, strap on that helmet, and get ready to shred our way through Rocket Power Gettin Air. I don't know how they did it, but Teartex managed to make a Rocket Power Game Boy Color game confusing as all hell. Starting the game drops you into this sort of hub world as Reggie, with directions in regards to what you're supposed to do not being found. Initially, I thought I was playing through some sort of 2D platformer, but quickly discovered I was very wrong. To get through this hub world, you'll be skating. Tony Hawk certainly had nothing to be afraid of here. The movement is so ridiculously slow. I know we're just moving around a hub, but it would be nice for the skating to at least feel okay here. Doesn't exactly fill me with confidence for the rest of the game. Pressing A or B will make Reggie sort of hop off her board, but at first this seems like a superfluous move. Eventually you'll discover through trial and error that you're supposed to stop in front of certain locations, press the A or B button to stop, and then press it again to enter a level. Once you figure this out, you'll be able to bounce from level to level, but there are still some levels that have their entrances be a little too obtuse. Additionally, not every level is open at once, which can result in you trying to enter a level, having it not work, and then thinking you were wrong and it's actually not an entrance. This comes back to bite you in the ass later, as the game unlocks the entrance without any fanfare. The first level I stumbled into was surfing as Sam. Here the goal is to score 40,000 points before you reach the end. You'll do this by smartly navigating the level and nabbing as many coins as you can. Congratulations guys, I just described the entirety of Gettin Air. While there are 10 unique levels that see you doing a number of different sports, they're all the same thing, collecting enough coins to specifically hit 40,000 points before you reach the end. The entire game is one basic and very brief flash game repeated 10 times. It even repeats sports, and let me tell you, those levels don't even remotely feel different from one another. But getting back to the first level, my first issue was the controls. As you're scrolling along here, you would imagine that up on the D-pad would move you up, down would make you go down, and left and right would do the same thing. Nope. Bizarrely, the left and right arrows are used to make you move up and down, which just feels so wrong. Collecting enough coins isn't as simple as strolling along leisurely from start to finish. Most of the time you'll have to do sick tricks to reach enough coins to pass a level. I say most of the time because there are 2 or 3 levels where you could pretty much just close your eyes and then have the game push you from start to finish and still win. The one thing you do need to be mindful of is crashing. In the opening surf level, you have to ride these waves, and if you mess up, you'll fall on your face. Do this a handful of times and your health will drain and you'll have to start over. The next level I jumped to was snowboarding with Reggie. Thankfully, the D-pad controls make a lot more sense in this one, but the lack of explanation still really hurt you. Most of the coins in this level are in the air after jumps, which you can't probably reach with a regular jump. To reach these, you need to do a trick, which I only discovered by mashing the D-pad as I went up the ramp. Expecting players to just discover this is a little much. This level overall is a little trickier as they put various hazards in your way that you'll have to go around or over to not take damage. Compared to surfing, it's basically Dark Souls. The third level is a BMX level as Twister and probably the clunkiest of all the levels in the game. The bike controls suck, and unlike the snowboarding, I couldn't find a button combination that would allow me to nab these high up coins. It carries over similar hazards to the snowboarding level, and honestly, it really feels like they just reskinned it. The fourth level is rollerblading with Otto. This one kind of stands out from the other levels as it's basically all about dodging obstacles rather than doing sick tricks. It actually provides a bit of difficulty, but once you understand the best way to navigate everything, it becomes a breeze, especially because the coins are just force-fed to you. And that's basically it for the levels. The rest of the game sees you doing another snowboarding level, another BMX level, another rollerblading level, and 3 more surfing levels. Having a basic game and repeating gameplay loops isn't necessarily a bad thing, but Tiertex gets it all wrong here. For starters, despite being themed around different sports, every level is the same damn thing. Like, did you need to make the points total you have to reach exactly the same for the whole game? They make attempts to change things up a little, but they're so minor and don't really affect the stock standard collect coins in an auto-scrolling level formula. The additional BMX and rollerblading levels change up the location to more of a skate park setting, which gives a little bit of interesting variety when it comes to doing tricks and stuff. But these levels are the dead easy levels I mentioned before, where you can basically just set the game down and the characters will scroll through, collecting 40,000 points without you doing anything. They try to change up the surfing a bit, but it's nothing too notable, especially when you consider that surfing accounts for 40% of this game. They initially change it up by allowing you to play as Tito. The only thing that changes here is the sprite that is surfing and a single shark enemy that barely shows up and doesn't act that different to the pre-existing hazards. Then you go back to playing as Sam, but this time he's surfing in the rain. The game tells you to collect a bunch of items that have been lost by the team, but something tells me that the game would have let me pass if I just ignored it and collected the 40,000 points. And then the final surfing level is surfing in the rain, but as Ray Rocket. That's it. Once you've beaten the game, you get a shitty little graphic of the characters eating, and then it's all over. It's just so disappointing. The fact that they took one level's worth of ideas and said fuck it, call it a day boys, feels insulting. How long could it have taken to make this game? None of the sports feel any different to play, so I can't imagine this game was an arduous project. These kinds of games are why TV and movie tie-ins get a bad reputation. It's so blatantly clear that Tiertex didn't give a shit about this game and dedicated as little time to it as humanly possible. Even with a game that's so basic, it's annoying how they refuse to give you any control info. Every level will be 95% identical, but there'll be one control quirk, like the move you need to pull off while snowboarding, that you need to discover on your own somehow. The controls are super clunky too. Everything feels so unresponsive in Gettin Air, it's like it takes several seconds for the game to register your inputs half the time. Most of the instances where your character takes damage or misses some coins is solely because the game decided it would take its sweet time acknowledging that you pressed a button. It's like even the game is shocked that somebody is choosing to play this pile of shit. I don't know what else to say about this garbage, so here's a 90s inspired montage of me eating it in various sports. Rocket Power Gettin Air is truly one of the worst games I've played on Nickelodeon video game history. Just about the only positive thing I have to say is that it's very short. Usually this would be a negative considering the game will take you 30 to 60 minutes to beat, but considering how bad it is, that's actually a positive. No, I don't recommend you play Gettin Air. I can't imagine that this game has any advantages over the 4 other video games Rocket Power received. It's so obvious Tiertex came up with a single idea and then just cloned it across 10 levels. Even then, 4 of those 10 levels are just surfing. Realistically, how many hours could it have taken to put this all together? The most frustrating thing about a careless game like this is that so often it makes it hard for me to put out an adequate video. How do you talk in depth about a game that just repeats the same 30 seconds of gameplay 10 times? It's an embarrassing effort and not something anybody should subject themselves to willingly. Will next time be a more enjoyable experience? We're jumping to the first home console Rocket Power video game, Team Rocket Rescue. The bar has been set so incredibly low. There's no way it can be worse than this, can it? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out as I continue my journey into the wild world of Nickelodeon video games.